What's up, guys? Today I'm going to show you the Mongolian style of archery. Part of my ancestors are from Mongolia, so I'm very interested in showing this technique. It's very difficult to find out how the Mongolians actually do the archery. People do not know because of the lack of documents. They don't have video cameras back then. They do not have photographs in the 13th century. They only have text and drawings. You see, the guy who draws them is a guy probably who never did archery, so he doesn't know what he's drawing, so he might not have focused on the details that really matter, such as the way your fingers are positioned, which direction it's tilting. Because he's a painter, he cares a lot more about the shape of the bow, how he looks in the graph, whatever, you know. But so it's, and even in text, it's the same thing. The artist who writes it, he doesn't know about specific things you need to detail in. And there's always bias towards this. And even with modern cameras or whatever, there's other bias. But at least with modern cameras, you can see exactly what he's doing as long as you have the right angle. The key here is to maybe analyze what the Mongolians might have used, okay? And first, we know the Mongolians always rides on horses. They ride on horses most of their life, and what that means is they need a archery technique that is very stable. When you're shooting on a horse, my hands are moving a lot, okay? So you cannot use a lot of the techniques you use on foot. For example, like this is just absolutely bullshit. It is not reliable because you do not have 2 points of contact. It is not reliable, you see? But if I hold it at the centroid, and now, you see, there is a lot less movement because I'm holding it at the center of gravity, so it doesn't move as much, it doesn't wobble as much. And if I add additional point of contact over here, this is doable on horse. Now, if I do it here, you see, you can try to do it like that, but really it's bullshit. And also we know that from a military perspective, the Saracen archery is almost useless because you cannot maximize full draw weight. I cannot pull 80 pounds with the Saracen archery, but I can pull, well, maybe once, 80 pounds with the regular style of archery using your back muscles. But here using your biceps a lot more, so it's absolutely waste of arrows. So, well, you don't use Saracen archery. You use a lot more is your back muscles. Now, first the debate is, well, before this, I've looked at some photographs and videos of how Mongolians shoot in the modern world, especially acting, the guys who are acting. Now, first of all, the problem is a lot of the people have been influenced by Western style archery, so I see a lot of Olympic style shooting where they put the arrow Mediterranean, like this, okay? They put the arrow like this, just like how Olympic styles do it, and they just grab with Mediterranean like this. But I do not believe this is how they did it back then, because look, just look at this. This is not stable on a horse. With a little bit of jittering, it will just fall off. See that? How difficult it is? And back then they did not have plastic nocks, they had wooden nocks, or whatever nocks, iron nocks, who knows, but they did not have plastic nocks, so it is very difficult to create a gap that pinches on very tightly. But therefore you have to use I would think they would have to use the thumb ring draw. There are other ways to use the Mediterranean draw but still have a very stable technique, okay? Is to load it the other way, but create a moment with your fingers. So I pinch before I don't pinch. And especially for instructors who teach you proper style of archery, they tell you do not pinch. But now, because as a lefty, I'm loading it the other way, as I used to do it. So now I'm actually going to pinch it so that the moment is generated towards the wall, so that it's touching the handle. And now I can use Mediterranean to pull that draw weight I want. But let's be realistic here. This, with a pinch and you're drawing it, you're going to realize you have a difficult problem with the release. Is because it's not a relaxed release. And especially for Mongols who want to shoot at long range, if you don't have a relaxed release, it's going to be very unreliable in terms of long range accuracy. And that's very important, especially at 50 yards, 60 yards, and you got a group of people who want to shoot at it. You want to make sure each shot is effective. And with a thumb ring, you can do that because my release is clean. That release here. You see, when I do a Saracen archery, those kind of stuff, it doesn't matter about the release because you're shooting at 10 yards, 20 yards, 15 yards. Nobody cares about that. But if you're talking about 50 yards and you still want an accurate shot, you really need a clean release here. People who find Mongolian thumb rings, the actual rings, so it proves that they used the thumb ring back then. But it's very annoying for me to see many of the archery clubs in Mongolia. Well, it's not annoying, it's just everybody's being globalized, so everybody is shooting the Mediterranean draw now, and you don't see many thumb ring draws even at Mongolia. I'm planning to visit Mongolia myself, so by then I can maybe visit and really get a lot more history detail into this. Now, let's actually talk about a bit of the influence here. If you see Korea, they do the thumb ring. Just like if you see the Manchus, how they do it, the closest people from Mongolia, they also do the thumb ring. So really, you start realizing they must have done the thumb ring too because they're so close. It's all influenced, okay? The Turkish, the Tatars, everybody, they all use the thumb ring. The Asiatic style is the thumb ring style. So they shoot on horse, this is right. Now, of course, there might be one or two people when they're bored, whatever, they're trying out other things, like me, they might have tried other styles, of course. But for standard issue military, they must have used the thumb ring. Now let's talk about the draw length here. This is when it gets into a debate, is do they pull a full draw length over here, like how the Koreans do it, or do they pull over here? It all depends on the bow, in fact, because the bow here, it all depends on how the bow is designed. Where is the maximum draw length? The Koreans use a much more flexible material, they utilize bamboo a lot more. So bamboo is very flexible, so they can pull a lot further draw length. The Mongolians didn't have bamboo as much as the others, but we do know they import other things from close countries and neighbors. But the reality is they used a lot more of their local materials, especially with the bows, and I do not think they would use flexible materials like that, but they do have horn, sinew, which are very reliable, especially in tensile strength. Sinew is very good for tensile strength, improving the draw length and maximum draw weight. But for the horn we're talking about, the horn, they had a lot of horn, so they could really use that. For wood, Mongolia lacks that wood part of it, so maybe that's why they would have a shorter draw length. So I don't think they would have a maximum draw length there, they would probably have a shorter draw length. But still, the draw weight is very heavy. Now, obviously, keep in mind, Mongolia, especially after conquering countries, they import a lot, and even before, they import a lot of materials, especially iron is one of the biggest things they import, especially for arrowheads. So there might be many materials they start importing and start figuring, oh, that's much better, and then they may be, over time, they start realizing, oh, I can even pull further draw length with more flexible materials. But really depends on the period, it very depends. So in the end, I highly doubt to start with, they would have a full draw length, have much more shorter draw length. No, the medieval bows in England they used is roughly, the average is up to 100 something pounds. Is 100 something pounds, but there are heavier bows up to 150. But the reality is most of them are maybe 90 pounds, 100 pounds, whatever. Well, the Mongol bows, we're not too sure what the draw weight is. We'll never find out where it is because you don't have the bows that they have in that period. The ones who last now are more for recreational use, so the draw weights are more like 40 pounds or whatever. They wouldn't pull that heavy anymore. So we would never find out. But from my estimates on armor, you still need to, especially with heavy armor, you still need to have a very heavy draw. So I'm still saying 90 pounds, 80 pounds with the Mongols seems fairly realistic. In fact, some might go up to 150, especially the strong people. But really, then again, it depends. So Of course, composite bows allow a much more heavier draw with a shorter bow, but it takes a lot longer to make. Mongols were always against war with China, and you know that China don't enjoy using bows. They enjoy using the crossbow because peasants can use it too. Any random peasant can learn how to use a bow, pull it with their feet and shoot it. Yes, the fire rate is less, but you can teach a peasant right over there to shoot a bow. Within a couple of days, he's able to hit a target at 20 yards or something, and that's good enough, you know, or they train it. And the thing is, they have a lot of people, and they have a giant wall to defend them. So really, you don't need, the fire rate isn't that important, especially when they have a huge stone wall there to protect them. But the Mongols really have to train each unit, each person needs to train their archery in order to go against that. One more interesting thing I find about the Chinese people at north is they use a Mongol bow and they attach a stock right literally onto the Mongol bow. Okay, like a composite bow, and they just put a stock right here, and they have their engineered trigger. So essentially, they just grab a Mongol bow, a very heavy one, and then grab a stock, and you can shoot it. So you're pretty much engineering this bow so that any peasant, anybody can shoot it. The same draw weight, like 150 pounds, a peasant can shoot it now without using his hands. He's going to use his entire body to pull it. So yes, the draw weight is lower, but anybody can shoot it, and it's very interesting that the arrows they used were very short arrows, so they're called, well, I'm not sure what they're called in Chinese, but they're very short. They're probably about 12 inches, 6 inches, nobody knows exactly, but the design here is so that the Mongols can't shoot back. But the Mongols also had a technique to shoot back by having a barrel, like a half-cut barrel, and then you can shoot it back, but the fire rate is less because now you have to grab the barrel, and that's very awkward, whatever. So yes, you can shoot it back, but you still have to modify it, and it takes time, and it's less effective. Do they shoot on their string hand or do they shoot on their quivers? The reality is the military wants to unify things, and if they shoot on the string hand, you can only have so many, but then you could have to start grabbing again. They would shoot with a quiver and belt quiver, and they would pull it out, and they would grab it, and they would shoot it, each arrow at a time. This kind of practice. The military teaches them a more faster technique for close range, and that's grabbing a couple of them and speed shooting a couple of them. But even with speed shooting, they would use maybe here, or maybe they would just grab 3 of them and shoot them while they're with their hand. But really, nobody will find out because, and if you do, please leave on comments below, and I would enjoy it a lot more.